My girlfriend dumped me and announced she was keeping our apartment. Turns out she picked the wrong guy to mess with. So my now ex-girlfriend Naomi and I have been together for almost 2 years. About 10 months ago, I found us this amazing apartment through my uncle Landon, who actually owns the building. He gave me a sweet deal on rent since I'm family, and I was excited to finally have a nice place to share with Naomi. Here's the thing though, I'm the only one on the lease. I paid the entire security deposit 3 months' rent, which was around $4,500, and I've been covering the rent every month since we moved in. Naomi contributes to groceries and utilities, but the apartment itself, that's all me. She moved in with me about a month after I signed the lease, and honestly, I didn't think twice about it at the time. We were in love, planning our future, all that stuff. So last Tuesday night, Naomi came home and just dropped this bomb on me completely out of nowhere. No lead up, no, we need to talk, nothing. She walked in, didn't even take her jacket off and said, "We're done, Joe. This isn't working anymore and I've decided I'm keeping the apartment. You can move back in with your parents or whatever." I literally thought she was joking at first. I laughed and said something like, "Good one, babe." But she just stared at me with this cold expression I'd never seen before and repeated herself. She was dead serious. My brain just couldn't compute what was happening. I asked her what the hell she was talking about. This was my apartment. I was the one on the lease. I paid for everything. She just shrugged and said, "I've been living here for 10 months. That gives me rights. Besides, you won't actually do anything about it. You're too nice for that." That last part really got me. The way she said it, so confident and dismissive, like she'd already played out this whole scenario in her head and decided I was just going to roll over and accept it. Looking back now, I realize she must have been planning this for a while. I tried to reason with her, asked her why she was doing this, if there was someone else, what changed. She wouldn't give me any real answers, just kept saying it's over and I'm staying, you're leaving. At one point she actually said, "You can afford to move somewhere else. I can't, so it makes more sense for me to stay." The audacity of it was stunning. Break up with me and steal my apartment all in one conversation. I couldn't sleep that night. Just lay there on the couch. She'd already claimed the bedroom, trying to figure out what the hell was happening and what I should do. The next morning, Wednesday, Naomi was acting like everything was normal except we weren't together anymore. Making coffee, getting ready for work, humming to herself. When I tried to talk to her again, she shut me down immediately. "I already told you what's happening. Accept it and start packing." That's when something clicked in my brain. She thought I was going to be a pushover. She thought wrong. I'm going to show her that sometimes the too nice guy is the one she shouldn't mess with. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. For everyone asking, no, there wasn't someone else as far as I know. I think she just decided she wanted the apartment and figured breaking up with me was the easiest way to get it. Update 1. Okay, so I promised an update and things have moved fast. Like, way faster than I expected. So Wednesday afternoon, right after my ex told me for the second time that she was keeping my apartment, I called Uncle Landon. I laid out the whole situation, the breakup, her claiming she was staying, all of it. There was this long pause on the phone, and then Landon just started laughing. Not in a mean way, more like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. He asked me to confirm. "So you're on the lease, you paid the deposit, you pay the rent every month, and she thinks she can just keep it?" I told him, yeah, that was exactly what was happening. She'd convinced she had residency rights or something because she'd lived here for 10 months. Landon asked me, "Does she know I'm your uncle, that I own the building?" I realized then that no, she didn't. I'd always just called him the landlord around her, and all the official stuff went through the property management company. I never thought it mattered, not until now. Landon laughed again. "Oh, this is going to be interesting. She really has no idea what she's walked into." Landon told me not to worry, he'd handle it. He asked me to text him a photo of the lease agreement, and said he'd prepare the necessary paperwork and send it over the next day. He explained that since he owned the building and I was the sole legal tenant, Naomi was technically an unauthorized occupant, now that I'd informed him of the situation. He was going to send her a formal notice requiring her to vacate within 24 hours as she wasn't on the lease, and the legal tenant no longer consented to her residence. I was honestly shocked at how seriously he was taking this. Landon told me he'd dealt with situations like this before, and the key was to act immediately and formally before they could establish any kind of case. The next morning, around 10 a.m., I got a text from Landon with a photo of a notice that had been taped to our apartment door. It was very official looking, addressed to Naomi Martinez, and basically said, "You are hereby notified that you are an unauthorized occupant of the premises located at address. As you are not a party to the lease agreement and the legal tenant no longer authorizes your presence, you are required to vacate the premises within 24 hours of receipt of this notice. Failure to comply may result in legal action including but not limited to trespassing charges." It was signed by Landon as the property owner and had all sorts of legal references I didn't fully understand but looked very official and serious. I was at work when this happened, so I didn't see Naomi's reaction in person, but oh boy did I hear about it. My phone started blowing up around noon with texts from her. "What the hell did you do? This is illegal, you can't just kick me out. I'm calling a lawyer. You're going to regret this." And then she called me. I answered and she was screaming, like absolutely losing it, saying I had no right to do this, that she had tenant rights, that she'd been living here for almost a year so I couldn't just evict her. I stayed calm and just told her that she wasn't on the lease, didn't pay the rent, and that she was the one who broke up with me and announced she was stealing my apartment. She pivoted immediately to trying to guilt trip me. Suddenly it was, "Where am I supposed to go? And I can't afford to move right now, and I thought you cared about me." I almost felt bad for a second, but then I remembered how cold and calculating she'd been just 24 hours ago when she thought she had the upper hand. I told her she should have thought about that before trying to steal my apartment, and that she had 24 hours to be out. Then I hung up. She tried calling back like a dozen times, but I didn't answer. Instead, I forwarded her number to voicemail and texted her, "All communication needs to go through the property owner from this point forward. His contact information is on the notice." That night, I stayed at my buddy Neil's place. I wasn't sure what Naomi might do, and I didn't want to be there for the drama. Landon called me that evening and told me he'd gotten about 6 voicemails from Naomi, ranging from angry to crying to trying to negotiate. He'd called her back once, very professionally, and reiterated that she had 24 hours to remove her belongings and vacate. She apparently told him she was going to report him, though she wasn't clear on who she'd be reporting him to or for what. "Let her try," Landon said. "She has no case. Zero. She's just an ex-girlfriend who decided she wanted to steal someone's apartment." I went back to the apartment Friday morning before work to grab some clothes and stuff. Naomi was there, and it was awkward. She tried one more time to talk to me, asking if we could work something out. I asked what she meant, and she suggested we could both stay in the apartment until she figured things out, maybe a few weeks or a month. I just looked at her and said, "You literally told me 2 days ago that you were keeping the apartment and I had to leave. You made your choice. You've got until 5 p.m. today to be out." Her whole demeanor changed again, back to cold. "Fine, but don't think this is over. The entitlement is just mind-blowing. But you know what? I'm done feeling guilty or conflicted." She showed me exactly who she is, and I'm just grateful Uncle Landon has my back on this. I'll update again once the 24 hours are up and let you all know what happens. Edit. For everyone asking if I'm worried about my stuff, I took my laptop, important documents, and a few valuables with me yesterday just in case. Landon also advised me to do a video walkthrough of the apartment documenting the condition of everything before the 24 hours are up, which I'm going to do tonight. Update 2. Okay, I need to type this out while it's still fresh because I can barely believe what just happened. Sorry if this is scattered. So the 24-hour deadline was 10 a.m. today. I got off work around 9:30 and headed back to the apartment with my buddy Neil, who was very excited to witness the drama firsthand. Uncle Landon met us there at about 9:45. When we got to the apartment, Naomi's car was still in the parking spot. Landon nodded and said, "All right, let's see if she's being reasonable or if this is going to get complicated." We went up and knocked. Naomi opened the door, and standing right behind her was her best friend, Brittany. If you've never met a Brittany in your life, count yourself lucky. This girl has been in Naomi's ear for our entire relationship, always subtle posting on social media about men ain't shit and protect yourself queen type stuff. Naomi looked like she'd been crying, but her expression was defiant. Brittany had her phone out and immediately started recording as soon as she saw us. Landon very calmly said, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stop recording. This is a private property matter." Brittany, in the most obnoxious voice possible, said, "I have a right to record. This is witness documentation of an illegal eviction." Landon didn't even blink. "This isn't an eviction. This is removing an unauthorized occupant. And you're currently trespassing, so I suggest you leave the property now or I'll call the police." Naomi jumped in, saying she wasn't going anywhere, that she had squatter's rights because she'd lived here for 10 months, and that we couldn't force her out without a proper eviction process. Landon pulled out a folder. This man came prepared and started calmly explaining the legal situation. He showed her the lease agreement with only my name on it, showed her the payment records proving I'd paid everything, and explained that in our state, unauthorized occupants can be removed by the property owner without the standard eviction process, especially when the legal tenant requests their removal. Naomi just kept shaking her head and saying, "This isn't legal. This can't be legal." Brittany was eating it up, still recording, throwing in comments like, "They can't do this to you, girl, and this is so toxic, oh my God." Then Naomi said, and I quote, "Fine, I'm calling the police. You're forcing me to call the police." Landon just nodded. "Please do. I'd be happy to explain the situation to them." So Naomi called 911. I wish you guys could see her face when she realized that calling the police was not going to go the way she expected. She told them she was being illegally evicted and that she needed help immediately. 2 officers showed up about 15 minutes later. In that time, we all just kind of stood around awkwardly. Brittany kept recording and muttering things under her breath. Neil whispered to me, "This is the best Thursday night I've had in months." When the cops arrived, one was this older guy and the other was a younger woman. They asked what was going on, and Naomi immediately launched into this story about how she'd been living here for 10 months and was now being thrown out on the street illegally with no notice. The older cop turned to Landon and asked if he was the property owner. Landon said yes and introduced himself by his full name. I saw Naomi's face change, like something just clicked. She looked at Landon, then at me, then back at Landon. "Wait, are you related to Joe?" Landon smiled. "I'm his uncle. I own this building." Naomi's face went white. You're his uncle," he never said. "Why would that matter?" Landon asked calmly. "You're not on the lease either way." That's when I realized she'd been banking on dealing with some faceless corporate landlord or property manager who wouldn't care about the personal drama and wouldn't move this fast. She had no idea she was trying to screw over someone whose family owned the place. Landon showed the officers his ID and the property deed that he'd brought prepared. "I tell you," and then calmly explained the actual situation. He showed them the lease with my name, explained that Naomi was not on the lease and had never paid rent, and that as the property owner, he was asking her to leave as an unauthorized occupant. The female officer asked Naomi if she had anything in writing showing she had a right to be there. She didn't. She just kept insisting that because she'd lived here for almost a year, she had rights. The male officer actually sighed. He explained to Naomi very patiently that without being on a lease or rental agreement, without paying rent, and with the legal tenant asking her to leave, she had no legal right to remain. He said the 24-hour notice was actually more generous than required, and that she needed to collect her belongings and go. Naomi started crying. Real tears this time. She asked where she was supposed to go, how this was fair, why they weren't helping her. The female officer softened a bit and asked if she had family or friends she could stay with. Naomi said yes, her mom lived about 30 minutes away. Then Brittany, who had been quiet for a few minutes, piped up with "This is such bullshit. She has rights. What kind of cops are you?" Both officers turned to her immediately. The male cop said, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stop recording and leave the property. You don't live here and you're interfering with an official matter." Brittany tried to argue, but the female officer cut her off. "Leave now or we'll cite you for trespassing and interference. Your choice." Brittany left, but not before making a big dramatic show of it, telling Naomi, "I'm so sorry, babe, call me later, this is so messed up," and shooting all of us dirty looks. With Brittany gone, the situation de-escalated pretty quickly. The officers stayed while Naomi packed up her stuff. It took her about 2 hours. Landon and I did a walkthrough of the apartment while she packed. Everything was intact. She hadn't damaged anything or stolen anything, at least not that I could see. At one point while she was loading boxes into her car, Naomi tried one last time. She walked up to me and said, very quietly, "I really didn't think you'd do this. I didn't think you had it in you." I just looked at her and said, "You tried to steal my apartment. What did you expect?" She didn't have an answer for that, just got in her car and left. Landon waited until she was completely gone, and then we changed all the locks. He'd already arranged for a locksmith to meet us there at noon. New locks installed within 30 minutes, and I officially had my apartment back. Neil bought us all pizza and beers afterward. We're currently sitting in my living room in my apartment, and honestly, I feel like I can breathe again. But still, the whole time this was happening, I kept thinking about how confident Naomi was that I wouldn't fight back. How she'd said, "You're too nice for that," and clearly believed she could just take what was mine because I wouldn't stop her. What kind of person does that? What kind of person dates someone for 2 years and then decides to screw them over like that? Some of you in the comments have been asking if there were red flags before this. Honestly, I don't know. I thought we were happy. Sure, we had our disagreements like any couple, but nothing that made me think she was capable of something like this. I keep replaying our relationship in my head, trying to figure out when she decided I was just a doormat she could walk all over. Anyway, that's the update. She's out, I have my apartment back, and the locks are changed. I know some of you were worried she'd damage stuff or refuse to leave even with the cops there, but it actually went pretty smoothly once the police confirmed she had no legal standing. Edit, for everyone asking about, no, I don't know where Naomi is staying. Not my problem anymore. Final update. I really thought I was done with this story, but some stuff came out over the last few days that you all need to hear. It explains so much. So it's been about a week since Naomi moved out. I've been settling back into the apartment, getting used to living alone again, and honestly just trying to process everything that happened. Life's been pretty quiet, work, gym, hanging with friends. But then yesterday I got a Facebook message from this guy named Julian. I didn't recognize the name at first, but his message said, "Hey man, I heard about what happened with you and Naomi. I dated her about 3 years ago and she tried to pull the exact same thing on me." I was floored. I called him immediately and we talked for like an hour. This is what he told me. Julian dated Naomi for about 1.5 years. They lived together in his apartment. Notice a pattern. He was on the lease, paid the rent. The whole situation was basically identical to mine. When they broke up and he said she broke up with him, just like she did with me, she announced she was keeping the apartment. In his case, his lease wasn't up for another 4 months, and his landlord was this old guy who didn't want to deal with tenant drama. So Julian basically had to pay rent on an apartment he wasn't living in for those 4 months while Naomi stayed there. He crashed with family during that time. Once the lease was up, he didn't renew it, and Naomi had to leave. He said she tried to get him to sign a joint lease, but he refused. When I asked him why he didn't fight harder to get her out earlier, he said he just didn't have the energy or resources to deal with it. He was young, didn't have connections like I did with Uncle Landon, and the landlord wouldn't help. It was easier to just pay the rent and wait it out. But here's where it gets even crazier. Julian said he heard from a mutual friend that Naomi had been kicked out of her college dorm for trying to claim her roommate's half of the room and her belongings. Apparently, Naomi told housing that she'd be taking over the full room and actually moved some of her roommate's stuff into storage, claiming she'd keep it safe for her, but then refused to give it back. The roommate had to file a complaint to get her things returned, and the school forced Naomi to move out. At first I thought this might be exaggerated or something, but then Julian sent me screenshots of old text messages between him and that mutual friend talking about it when it happened. This was before he'd even started dating Naomi, so it wasn't like the friend was making it up to warn him or anything. It was just campus gossip at the time. I've been thinking about this nonstop. 3 separate times that I know of now, Naomi has tried to take over living situations that weren't hers. It's like it's a pattern with her. She gets into a living situation, gets comfortable, and then decides she deserves to have it even when she has no right to it. Then yesterday evening, Uncle Landon called me. He said he'd decided to reach out to Naomi's mother to confirm the situation was resolved and make sure there wouldn't be any ongoing issues. Apparently, when Landon called Mrs. Martinez to verify that Naomi had removed all her belongings and wouldn't be returning, the conversation took an unexpected turn. Mrs. Martinez apologized profusely for any trouble her daughter caused and seemed genuinely embarrassed. Then she said something that made Landon immediately call me afterward to relay the conversation. According to Landon, Mrs. Martinez said, "My daughter has done something similar with a previous boyfriend. I was hoping she'd outgrown this behavior. I'm very sorry. She doesn't know when to stop." Landon told me he didn't pry further because it felt inappropriate, but the mother's admission basically confirmed what Julian had told me. This is a pattern with Naomi. This is something she's done before and will probably do again to some other poor guy. As for where I'm at now, I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. The apartment feels like mine again. I've been reorganizing things, got rid of stuff that reminded me of Naomi, bought some new furniture. I'm planning to stay in this place for a while. Landon gave me a great deal on the rent, and honestly, after everything that happened, I like knowing I have family in my corner. Neil and I have been hanging out more, which has been good. He keeps joking that I should write a book about this called How to Evict Your Ex in 24 Hours. I haven't heard from Naomi at all since she left. Her number is blocked, her social media is blocked, and I plan to keep it that way. I did hear through the grapevine, Julian, actually, that she's been posting vague stuff on Instagram about betrayal and fake people. But I'm not checking it myself and don't plan to. Brittany apparently posted a long rant about how I abused the legal system to hurt a vulnerable woman, but then deleted it after people in the comments started asking for her side of the story. I guess when you actually have to explain the facts, she tried to steal her ex's apartment after dumping him. It doesn't sound quite as sympathetic. To everyone who's been following this story and leaving supportive comments, thank you. Seriously. This was one of the most stressful weeks of my life, and knowing that a bunch of internet strangers had my back meant more than you know. Anyway, that's really it this time. No more updates unless something wild happens, but I'm pretty confident this chapter is closed. I'm moving forward, enjoying my space, and taking some time to figure out what I actually want in a partner before I start dating again. Thanks again, Reddit. You guys are the best.